Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and even when I've just had my first COVID vaccine dose and have been feeling as rough as a badger. So yes, in this video, what I thought I would do is just have a bit of an old rant at right-wing nut jobs, and I'm going to start off with the Conservatives, I suppose, because in my vaccine haze, I thought, well, I'll share my experiences and discuss how I was considering just how Boris Johnson and his Tory Brexiteers seem to have used the situation to gain an unexpected distraction from Brexit and even a boost to their popularity. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So yeah, had my first dose of the COVID vaccine now, had that on Friday morning. Or as a friend keeps putting it, the Bill Gates nanochip insertion. Not sure how quickly that part activates. I guess we'll know if in a few days I start extolling the virtues of Microsoft products. We'll know it's working if I start thinking how great an idea it is that if you're working in an app and you open another one, instead of it just opening up in the background so you can go to it when you're ready, it pops up in front of you, stopping you doing whatever you were doing, like a cat jumping on your keyboard. But we'll worry about that later. I'm actually the last person in my household to get the jab. The rest were telling me how ill I was going to be. I was going, no. I spend my days listening to Tory MPs. I'm used to little pricks. It's not going to be a problem. Besides, I didn't have time to be ill. I'm far too busy. I even suggested that actually, my second dose is scheduled for July, mid-July. And I thought in July I'll have a bit more time. I won't be doing the teaching, so I'll be ill for the second one. I mean, I thought that was a perfectly reasonable compromise. But no such luck. Fine for most of the day, then some muscle aches later that night, and I was thinking, oh no, this is how I feel when I'm about to get flu. Very rough nights. Very, very rough night of the anticipated flu-like symptoms then. But as the day's gone on, got better. As Saturday's gone on, got better. Which will be yesterday from your point of view. And it got me to thinking about just how much political capital Boris Johnson has actually made from this situation, due to a mix of lies and others failing to take him seriously enough, I suppose. For example, it's not just that the seriousness of the pandemic and the success of the vaccine rollout in the UK has masked much of the damage of Brexit, say, but Johnson has told a particularly grievous lie that makes some think Brexit was worth the damage for a payout. Now, in PMQs last Wednesday, Boris Johnson repeated a lie that our vaccine rollout couldn't possibly have been successful without Brexit and leaving the European Medicines Agency. And you can see how seductive a lie this is, because people will see it is actually rolling out quite well in the EU at the moment, but it was a slow start. There's no getting away from the fact the EU acted very slowly. But people see all these countries in the EU have all done the same thing. They've basically been led by the EU Commission for reasons I don't need to go into here. So it makes sense. People thought, well, if we were still in the EU, we'd have done the same thing. No, not necessarily. So there's Boris Johnson in Parliament saying, we couldn't have done this if we hadn't left the European Medicines Agency. And I note that Starmer, not for the first time, didn't come straight back on that statement. Now, I'm not necessarily going to attack that, because it could just have been Starmer focusing on the key lines of attack, because Boris Johnson was trying to distract at that point. Starmer didn't want to be thrown off by Johnson's diversionary tactics. That's possible. But still, I really wish people would keep pointing out a few things regarding the European Medicines Agency. First of all, it does not tell governments how to manage their healthcare provision. We could have managed our vaccine rollout exactly as we pleased in or out of the EMA. So could every other EU country. They chose to do it together to avoid vaccine nationalism causing friction. The second thing is, we were still in the EMA when we started our vaccine rollout. So it's like, if we couldn't have done that when we were in the EMA, how come we did that when we were in the EMA? The only EU institutions we actually left at the end of January 2020, when we left the EU, were the Council, the Commission and the Parliament. Everything else we remained in until the start of this year. weeks after beginning our vaccine programme and months after deciding what it would be. And then the third thing. So yes, right now we are out of the EMA, but we are still bound by its regulations for a further 2 years. So if the European Medicines Agency actually was deciding how we could manage our vaccine programme, which it isn't, but if it were, it would still be doing so. Now, because this lie could be cutting through to some people, in fact, I've no doubt it will be cutting through to some, let's make no bones about this. Brexit is devastating. Here's the issue. Absolutely. It is crushing more British businesses and jobs on an almost daily basis. And there's no way of avoiding the news on this. Even if you read The Express, which is as hard a Brexit paper as you can imagine, you cannot escape these stories. Labour have convinced themselves that now is not the time to actually point this out, for reasons, but it is evident enough to many. Like I said, even the pro-hard Brexit Express is writing articles on a very regular basis now, explaining the spectacular economic damage of Brexit. Yes, if you read the articles, they still manage to turn most of them into whining about the EU, but they aren't actually trying to hide the damage. What this lie about the vaccine does is get some people to accept that Brexit is devastating. Absolutely, yeah, we get that. Under normal circumstances, we'd think it was a really stupid idea to have gone through with it. But their criticism of it may be muted by the thought, oh, but we got the benefit of this vaccination programme, which is a lie. We also looked out massively. After all, why is our vaccine rollout so successful? Unlike the so-called world-beating test and trace that we were supposed to be getting, our vaccine programme genuinely is something that stands out internationally. Partly this was down to the government deciding to let the NHS manage it. Although the government kept talking about NHS test and trace, the NHS were not running the bulk of that programme at all, which is why it failed so hard. Imagine how good our test and trace could have been if the NHS did run it. Imagine if Johnson, though, the flip side of that, had continued with his general pandemic plan of getting Tory donors to deliver our salvation. If he'd given the job of vaccinating the country to t-shirt producers or rat catchers. Then there was the decision to chance our arm, no pun intended, by waiting 12 weeks before giving the second dose, rather than the 4 weeks that was advised at the time. Now, this was a sensible gamble. I'd said so at the time. There was nothing reckless about it. We have to remember just how seriously the second peak of the second wave was for us. We were in real trouble. It was out of control. And a careful approach to vaccinations was a greater risk. Yes, the lockdown was good to start to bring that down, but we needed to use that time to vaccinate people. We needed to vaccinate, and we needed to vaccinate quickly. As it turned out, receiving the second dose 11 or 12 weeks later has worked out. We didn't know that it would, but we were forced into the gamble, and it paid off big time. And this is the thing. Scandal is absolutely engulfing Boris Johnson and his Conservative government yet again. Government ministers have had to resign for much less than the appalling acts committed by Johnson and his cronies. The pandemic handling should have seen the Tories' credibility destroyed completely. Yet, although the polls are highly volatile right now, there's another poll just come out showing the Conservatives have massively lost and Labour have massively gained. For the past couple of months, the Conservatives have been consistently riding high, not just ahead of Labour, well ahead. And they may again. And why? People were lapping up the success of the vaccination programme. But the reason it was so urgent for us is because we refused to pursue a zero COVID strategy, despite the return to genuinely normal life that those in countries that did get to benefit from now. People are also loving the end to another lengthy lockdown, despite the fact that we only have a lengthy lockdown because, again, we didn't stamp on surges in case numbers early enough. And we're seeing the same thing with Brexit. It has been an unmitigated disaster. And yet Brexit apologists, because that's what they are now, they're not Brexit supporters now. We don't have Brexit supporters, we have Brexit apologists. They're saying it's fine because it hasn't yet met the very worst of the possible outcomes. I saw someone joking on social media that with these people, basically as long as Brexit doesn't actually resurrect Hitler, it will be considered a success. Because that's how people are viewing this government now. We have one of the worst death tolls in the world. Well, it could have been worse, not that bad. We have the worst recession of all advanced nations. Well, it could have been worse, so it's not that bad. We have a Brexit that is wiping out sectors of our economy and has suppressed almost all the rest. As far as I can tell, the only growth industries since Brexit have been logistics and the trade in political lies. Well, it could have been worse, so it's not that bad. And this is why whenever we get interested in the latest scandal that could bring Johnson down, it's very easy to get excited. I get excited myself. I think we have to remember he's not just survived similar scandals in the past, but has at times actively thrived. This is a man who is continually exposed as devastating our nation. Every time he puts something in place, we get weaker. Even supporters cannot deny that we get weaker. They'll try and say, oh, but it's going to get better. When is it going to get better? Every time he does a thing, we get weaker. And yet the moves to remove him still haven't even begun. He may even get an electoral boost from the local elections next week. The Conservatives are projected to gain there. Potentially a huge symbolic boost from the Hartlepool by-election. Scotland won't go well, but then it's widely accepted now that although the Conservatives will put effort into saving the Union, they are nonetheless willing to sacrifice it on the altar of English nationalism that is forming the basis of their power. And I'm not just talking about the nutters in control of the Conservative Party right now. Polls of members or even some Conservative supporters now consistently show that a majority will sacrifice the Union, the very United Kingdom. They'll sacrifice that flag they've been humping for something, for whatever it is they think they're getting. But there we are anyway. Those are my rambling, delusional thoughts as a result of the headache I've still got pounding. Further ones, I suppose, will also come inevitably, particularly in about a week's time when we've got the results of those local elections. But I really don't think it'll be very much different to what the polls are showing right now. But until then, I hope you found the video interesting. If you did, don't forget to click the like button. If you'd like to support the channel further, please also click the Patreon link for details. And until next time, I'll see you later.